Namaste. Hello and welcome to the Kundalini podcast. That was Zen. This is Tao. I'm Vivek, Govekar. This is episode 63. And again, a few days have gone by, but I didn't want this to be months and months before I made a video. So thought I'd make a video. And I have an interesting topic to talk about. Someone asked me a question, left me a comment, and asked me a very interesting thing. They said, could you make a video talking about your spiritual mentors? And I thought, wow, yeah, I can talk about this in many different ways. It's a very interesting topic. So, again, I had a Kundalini awakening in 2006, and I'm dealing with the aftermath of that. And finally, things are beginning to stabilize. I'm still dealing with some pain in my back, but emotionally, I am kind of adjusted to that process, and a lot of people, a lot of things in my mind have been removed, cleansed, so that I can be at peace and I can see that goal in the distance where it is going to stabilize. The physical parts of it are getting better. And of course, because of all the experiences that I've had, all the reading that I have done, the research I have done, the knowledge that I have gained from that process, and then compared to other people who have written about spirituality, other spiritual masters, naturally, there is a bunch of people who are now I would consider my spiritual mentors or people that I look up to. So it's a complex question when someone asks me, who are your spiritual mentors? If you have watched my videos, you know that I was an agnostic, a scientific person, a scientist, and didn't believe in a lot of spiritual things. So prior to my awakening, there really wasn't any spiritual mentor as such. Back then, if I was doing spiritual things, religious things, it was out of habit. It was just go along with whatever rituals your family is performing and whatever you see outside in society as part of just ritual without any significant meaning to them. I was not thinking about a spiritual journey or an awakening at all before that. So I grew up in a religious household, and my father was very much into those spiritual things. Besides going to temple, Hindu temple, and I went to Catholic school. So besides being exposed to Catholic doctrine, uh, just the people that he believed in, there was a great guru who I believe gave me Shaktipat at a young age, and that's why this awakened in me later on in life. That was his spiritual mentor. His name was Purushottam Maharaj, and he has written wonderful books in Marathi, the language I speak. Uh, he has since passed on. That was a person that I have seen who's a spiritual guru, and my father was a great follower of him, and our whole family was influenced by him. He is the one who initiated us into the Gayatri mantra and gave it to us and asked us to repeat it. Uh, my father listened to a lot of Osho, and that had a significant impact on me, even without knowing it. Some of those ideas permeated into my mind and always took organized religion with a grain of salt, always was skeptical about any claims made by any guru because that's how he approached spirituality. He approaches it with a lot of humor and demystifies a lot of things that organized religion makes into very dense things and unapproachable, inaccessible. He makes it easy. And he talks about people from many spiritual traditions. So that was in the background. Um, Other than that, I'd never made any attempt to go and find any mentors. After my awakening, as I've said in other videos, I didn't have access to any gurus. I was in the United States, and because of circumstances in my life where I started to think, hey, what's this? This is some insane thing that is happening to me, very unusual. I didn't even want to talk to people, and I wasn't in the state of mind to go and approach somebody. I was trying to do my best, and I was in this state of immense bliss initially. And I knew this was a Kundalini awakening. And at that point, spirituality became very, very important. So then I started looking at a lot of videos, a lot of books and writings by people online as well as in any book that I could find. I have mentioned these people before, but the first book I read was by J. Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti is amazing, and whatever he writes is very pertinent to this whole process. But not necessarily people from the Hindu tradition or enlightened masters from India, but I read about Thomas Aquinas, um, Eckhart, Meister Eckhart, a great European mystic. You could spot, I mean, I can spot people who have had a genuine Kundalini awakening, regardless of what tradition they had that awakening in. Uh, Osho was a great guide because he explains about philosophy and talks of people from different traditions. Because again, he was an enlightened person and he can look at other enlightened people, and the religious baggage, what religion they come from and what tradition they come from, is just superfluous and incidental to that person's existence. The truth is not bound by one specific tradition, and actually more time passes and more it becomes rigid, and the tradition is carried on by unawakened people, the further away it goes from truth. That is just the nature of things. This is not something I'm saying to be malicious to a particular tradition. It's just the nature of things. uh, Beyond Osho, Krishnamurti, Swami Lakshmanju from the Kashmir Shaivite tradition made a lot of sense, and his books were wonderful to read. For the actual practical aspects of coping with the Kundalini process, I had to find people who had awakened themselves. So Gopi Krishna and his books became very, very, very convenient and wonderful tools for me to use so that I could learn more about this process and a lot of things that Gopi Krishna said. So Kundalini awakening wise, people who had had specific Kundalini experiences, Swami Muktanand, Gopi Krishna, Nirmala Devi, that's another saint. I saw her videos on her website, and that helped me cleanse me myself and some of the processes, some of the alternate nostril breathings, things, Sahaj Yoga, her method, that helped me a lot. Uh, Besides that, other people who are having Kundalini awakenings right now, along with me, who had just awakened a few years before me or about the same time as me, the Biology of Kundalini website. I keep talking about that, and that was extremely helpful. There is a person by the name of Philip Saint Romain. There is J. Semple, who has become a friend of mine, and I have written on his blogs. Uh, uh, a very dear friend by the name of Neven Parr, who went through a Kundalini awakening. He's younger than me, but he had his process before, and he's further ahead on some aspects of this journey. You could find his videos on YouTube as well. The same with J. Semple. The Kundalini Consortium is the name of that blog. So it was a group of people that I found who I seeked out those people that had Kundalini experiences and who could help me navigate this process. Those were my spiritual mentors, to be very honest with you. Your own awakening gives you a lot of insights. And naturally, that's why you're watching these videos and why I'm making these videos, is because an awakened person can explain a lot of things. But that does not mean that that process is immediately completed and done in that person. I am undergoing this process, and right at the beginning, I got a lot of insights, but it took me a long time to adjust to society, faced a lot of problems. And because the process is ongoing, where it is constantly in your back, regardless of what society is telling you, how much opposition you face, you still have to keep going through that process. And sometimes the journey is tough, so the Kundalini part of it gets sidelined because you have to take care of everyday reality. I had to take care of my daughter. I had to now go and find a job, and things that you had to adjust to make the process a normal, seamless part of your experience. Sometimes for that, you have to first disregard that process a little bit and focus on some things that you may not necessarily want to, but you have to get rid of some junk from your life and to straighten some things, get rid of some past karma, remove some old patterns and habits and behavior. Like if you have a partying lifestyle and if you're just going through life doing fun things, as I was, you have become more serious about spirituality, have a routine about meditation, have to take care about your mental state. So that was a process of trial and error for which I was guided by the process, the energy itself. Learning to use Tai Chi, learning to use breathing methods, how to cope with your sexual urges and make them productive for the process. You have to let go of a lot of inhibitions when you're exploring this process, because you revert to this animalistic, childlike state and everything is wonderful, you're exploring it, but outside in society there's a possibility you might look crazy, and all of that had to be adjusted. So my goal was to find people who would help me practically. On the spiritual level, I was being helped by Osho a lot. Another unlikely source of great information for me was Bruce Lee. I was always a big fan of Bruce Lee and got more into martial arts as part of my meditative practices, as part of my training. Uh, and the writings of Bruce Lee, when I was reading them, became very helpful, because this was, you're dealing with society, you have to have a bit of a discipline which comes from martial arts. You have to deal with people who are antagonistic to you, not necessarily helpful to you while going through this process. And that mental training of martial arts, not just the physical part of it, came in very handy in the form of writings from Bruce Lee in his philosophical writings, not just the martial arts stuff. He's a great philosopher as well. So that was one of my spiritual mentors. Because of Aikido, Osensei Morihei Ueshiba, and that whole philosophy and what he was trying to say started making sense on that deeper level. And that became a spiritual mentor. And life in general is a great spiritual teacher. Because after an awakening, you're not seeing with the same eyes. You're looking at the world with a completely different set of eyes. And every experience, if you allow it to, becomes your teacher. Why? Because your old programming is going away. And now you're saying, okay, mindfully, I'm looking at this. Look, this is my old reaction, and this is how I would like to react to this event. But now I have to bring back and witness this event. But how do I react to it now? What is the right way of reacting so that I can remove this old sickness, this old pattern from me, where somebody would make me mad and I'll get mad, or somebody will tempt me with something and I go along with that. Now I'm mindfully aware because of the energy and I've trained myself. So what's the response to it? So every situation in life teaches you. And it's an ongoing process. It takes a long time, especially if you're being bombarded by people coming to manipulate you and, you know, try to make you do what they want, because suddenly they have seen a new person now. Like, what's this Kundalini and spiritual stuff? We don't want that. We want the old Vivek. Now, old Vivek is not coming back. He's not in this body anymore. So every situation in life teaches you. And as these transformations are happening, as old patterns are going and layers are going away, you have to make the effort so that old patterns don't have a grasp on you again, don't take a hold of you and start making you behave in that old fashion again. That is something I have learned, and that life itself becomes your spiritual mentor. You start learning more about life from each moment, and previously you were just going through life being blind to all of these things. But being mindfully aware of your own emotions as they rise in response to a reaction, to a situation, to some kind of stimulus, is the greatest teaching tool throughout this process. So that's a little bit about some of my spiritual mentors, my spiritual experiences, how I went about finding teachers and learning from different things. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching. Namaste.